The great chamber of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. Its walls rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the ceiling. 12 ancient species sat in floating seats arranged in a circle, looking down at anyone who stood in the center. Today, that someone was Captain Park Jin-ho of the United Nations. Space Command thought he stood perfectly still in his black dress uniform. His face showed nothing. Not anger. Not fear. Not even boredom. He simply waited as the aliens spoke about humanity like they were discussing a problem child. Grand Arbiter Velos, a creature that looked like a tower of blue crystal with too many eyes, leaned forward in his seat. His voice echoed through the chamber like wind through a cave. 87 years, Velos said. Your species has been among the stars for only 87 years. Yet you have built more warships than civilizations 10 times your age. You have weapons that serve no purpose in civilized conflict. You prepare for wars that no one is fighting. Jin-ho said nothing. Beside him, Dr. Hana translated the alien words, though he understood them well enough. She was the diplomatic voice of their delegation. Her job was to smile and make peace. His job was something else entirely. We have watched your kind, Velos continued. We have studied your history. Your world was barely unified when you reached for the stars. You brought your violence with you. Your fear. A ripple of agreement passed through the council. Ambassador Threll, a nervous creature covered in gray feathers, clicked his beak rapidly. They build bunkers on every colony. They train their children in combat. They stockpile weapons enough to fight wars for centuries. Because they are afraid, said another council member. A being made of living smoke. They fear what waits in the darkness between stars. Velos raised one crystalline limb, and the chamber fell silent. Let me explain something to you humans. War among civilized species is not what you imagine. It is a tool, a negotiation tactic. When two species disagree, they may exchange fire. Ships are disabled. Soldiers are captured. Tribute is paid. Life continues. The crystal being's many eyes focused on Jin-ho. In 10,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever been destroyed by war. We have rules, protocols. Surrender is always accepted. Planets are never burned. Civilians are never targeted. This is the way of things. Dr. Hana stepped forward, her voice calm and professional. The Galactic Council's wisdom is well known to Earth. We respect your traditions. But humanity's history has taught us different lessons. Your history, Velos said with something like pity, is the history of children fighting in the dark. You fear war because you do not understand it. You build weapons because you are afraid of shadows. For the first time, Jin-ho spoke. His voice was quiet, but somehow it filled the enormous chamber. You misunderstand. The council members shifted in their seats. Something in the human's tone made them uncomfortable, though none could say exactly why. We do not fear war, Jin-ho said. We fear what we become when war is the only option left. Velos made a sound that might have been laughter. Poetic words from a young species. But words do not change reality. Your military buildup threatens the stability of this sector. The Council demands that you reduce your fleet by 60% and submit to regular inspections. Before Hana could respond diplomatically, a sharp tone cut through the chamber. A communication signal. Emergency priority. One of the Council's servants, a small creature with many legs, scurried to Velos and whispered something. The Grand Arbiter's crystalline body flickered with colors that Jin-ho had learned to recognize as surprise. Then concern. Then something else. It seems, Velos announced slowly, that this discussion has become more relevant than expected. The Droma hegemony has just crossed into human-protected space. They have attacked one of your colony worlds. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Droma hegemony was a powerful alliance, aggressive and proud. They had been expanding their territory for decades, and the Council had done nothing to stop them. New Bazan, Hana said quietly, reading from her personal device. Her face had gone pale. Population of 40,000. The hegemony fleet is in orbit. They're demanding surrender. Ambassador Thrall leaned forward eagerly. This is most unfortunate, but the Council can mediate. The hegemony will want tribute, perhaps some territory. These things can be negotiated. Humans, you should request our intervention immediately. Velos nodded, his crystal form humming with self-importance. Yes, sue for peace. Accept reasonable terms. This is how civilized species handle such matters. There is no need for your famous fear to Lieutenant Yuna. Jinho's voice cut through the noise like a blade. He wasn't looking at the Council anymore. He was looking at his tactical officer, a young woman who had been standing silently at the edge of the delegation. She stepped forward, her face as blank as his own. How many ships attacked New Bazan? Jinho asked. 42 confirmed, sir. War Chief Droma commands personally. And our nearest response fleet? 18 vessels. 6 hours away. The Council members watched this exchange with confusion. Ambassador Thrall clicked his beak nervously. Surely you will not. I mean 42 against 18. You must see that negotiation is the only. Jinho looked at Yuna and nodded once. Just once. She touched her communicator and spoke a single word. Execute. Then she looked up at the Council with eyes that held no emotion at all. The second fleet is already moving, she said. They were moving before we received the news. Standard protocol when hostile forces approach our territory. Velas's crystal body flickered rapidly. You cannot mean to fight. The numbers alone. We know the numbers, Jinho said. He turned to leave the chamber, Hana and Yuna falling into step behind him. At the doorway, he paused and looked back at the most powerful beings in the galaxy. You said we fear war. You were wrong. His voice was still quiet, still calm. But by tomorrow, the hegemony will understand what fear truly means. The great doors closed behind the human delegation, in the silence that followed. Ambassador Thrall whispered to no one in particular. What have they done? What are they going to do? Grand Arbiter Velos had no answer. For the first time in 3,000 years, he felt something cold moving through his ancient body. He did not yet have a name for it, but he would learn. The UNC Resolve cut through space like a knife through black water. It was not the largest ship in the human fleet, but it was fast and it was deadly. Captain Park Jinho stood on the bridge, watching the stars blur past as they traveled faster than light itself. Around him, his crew worked in near total silence. No chatter, no wasted words. Each person knew their role and did it without being told. To an outside observer, it might have looked like a machine operating itself. Scholar Yeleth was that outside observer. The Galactic Council had sent her to watch and report. She was a historian, a being that looked like a tall insect made of bronze metal, with large eyes that recorded everything they saw. She had studied 100 species across 1,000 years. She thought she understood war. She was wrong. Your crew does not speak, she said to Sergeant Major Taiwu, the ground forces commander. He was a thick man with gray in his short hair and scars on his hands. He sat in the corner of the bridge, checking his weapon for the 15th time. Nothing to say, he replied without looking up. But surely there are orders to give. Strategies to discuss? In my observation of the hegemony, there is always much communication before battle. Taiwu finally looked at her. His eyes were flat and dark, like stones at the bottom of a deep river. We trained together for years. We know what to do. Talking just wastes time and tells the enemy you're scared. Yeleth processed this. You are not scared? Fear is for before and after. During, there's only the mission. She watched him return to his weapon. Such a simple tool, she thought. Projectiles and explosives. The hegemony used energy weapons, plasma cannons, things that seemed far more advanced. Yet something about the way Taiwu held his rifle made her uncomfortable. Lieutenant, Yuna's voice came over the ship's speakers. Contact with the Second Fleet established. All vessels reporting ready. We will arrive at New Bizen in 4 hours. Yeleth moved to the tactical display. 18 blue dots representing human ships. 42 red dots around the colony world. The numbers were simple. The humans would lose. I do not understand, she said to Captain Jinho, who stood motionless before the main window. Your fleet is less than half the size of theirs. The logical action is to negotiate. Why do you fly towards certain defeat? Jinho did not turn around. Show her. Taiwu stood and walked to a display screen. He touched it, and images appeared. Old images. Images from Earth. Yeleth saw trenches filled with bodies, stretching to the horizon. She saw cities turn to rubble, smoke rising from the ruins. She saw a mushroom cloud, beautiful and terrible, rising over a place called Hiroshima. She saw mass graves. She saw soldiers walking through snow, their faces empty of everything except the will to continue. What is this? She whispered. Our history, Taiwu said. 300 years of it. This is what we did to each other before we reached the stars. But, your own species? You did this to yourselves? Several times. We nearly ended our entire civilization more than once. Not because we were attacked by aliens. Not because of some external threat. Just because we disagreed about things. Yeleth's bronze body trembled slightly. In all her studies, she had never seen anything like this. The wars of the galaxy were careful, controlled affairs. This was something else entirely. Your people fight to gain territory, Taiwu continued. Resources, influence. You fight until the cost becomes too high, and then you stop. We learned a different way. We fight to survive. When humans go to war, truly go to war, there is no acceptable loss. There is only victory or extinction. But the hegemony has offered terms, tribute, some territory. Surely that is better than... They attacked our civilians, Taiwu interrupted. His voice was still calm, but something in it made Yeleth step backward. Our children. The moment they did that, negotiation ended. On the main screen, a new message appeared. War Chief Droma was broadcasting to the approaching human fleet. The alien commander appeared on screen, a massive creature covered in thick red armor that grew from his own body. He smiled with a mouth full of sharp teeth. Humans, Droma announced proudly. I see you have chosen to fight. How entertaining. I have crushed a dozen species who thought they could resist the hegemony. Your little fleet will make fine additions to my trophy collection. Surrender now, and I will only take half your territory. Continue, and I will take everything. Dr. Hannah stepped forward. Lord Chief Droma, she said, her voice gentle and sad. This is your final opportunity to withdraw from human space. If you leave now, peacefully, we will not pursue. Droma laughed, a harsh sound like breaking rocks. You threaten me? With 18 ships? Against my 42? He laughed again, and his bridge crew laughed with him. I will enjoy teaching you the reality of power, little creature. The transmission ended. Hannah turned to Jinho. I have fulfilled the protocol. He nodded once. So recorded. They were warned. Yeleth watched this exchange with growing horror. Protocol? What protocol? You cannot fight them. The mathematics are clear. Jinho finally turned from the window. His face was still empty, still calm. But his eyes held something that made Yelleth think of the mushroom cloud in those old images. "Scholar Yelleth," he said quietly, "in the next hour, you will see things that your histories have never recorded. You will see what humanity is capable of when someone hurts our people. I suggest you record everything carefully. The galaxy should know what happens next." He pressed a button on his chair. His voice went out to every human ship in the fleet. "All hands, this is Captain Jinho. The hegemony has killed our civilians, our families, our children. They have been warned. They have refused to leave. You know what happens now." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was soft as a prayer. They wanted to know what humanity fears. Show them what they should have feared instead. Across 18 ships, bay doors opened. Thousands of small objects launched into space, spreading out in patterns too complex to follow. They were drones. Autonomous weapons designed to hunt and kill without mercy or hesitation. Yelleth watched them swarm forward like a cloud of metal locusts. "What are those?" Taiwu stood beside her, his face grim. "Our answer." War Chief Droma had conquered 11 species. He knew how battles worked. The enemy would approach in formation. Weapons would fire. Shields would flicker and fail. Ships would be disabled, captured, and claimed as prizes. The losing side would surrender, pay tribute, and life would continue. This was the way of civilized warfare. This was what he expected, what he got was something else entirely. The first warning came from his sensor officer, a young soldier whose voice cracked with confusion. "War Chief, the human ships have launched something. Thousands of small objects. Moving very fast." Droma leaned forward in his command chair. "Missiles? Destroy them. They are too small for our main guns. Point defense is targeting now, but there are so many." The cloud of human drones hit the hegemony fleet like a swarm of angry insects. They were too small to destroy a ship on their own. But they did not need to. They targeted specific systems. Shield generators, sensor arrays, weapon ports. Communication dishes docked within 5 minutes. Half of Droma's fleet was blind and deaf. "What is this?" Droma roared. "What kind of weapon is this?" Before anyone could answer, the human ships arrived. On the bridge of the Resolve, Lieutenant Yuna called out targets with machine precision. Carrier 7, reactor exposed. Cruiser 12, bridge vulnerable. Destroyer Group 3, formation broken. The human ships did not fight like any enemy the hegemony had ever faced. They did not try to disable or capture. Every shot was aimed at something vital. Reactors, life support systems, command bridges. Things that would kill a ship and everyone aboard. Scholar Yelleth watched from the observation deck, her recording systems capturing everything. She had seen battles before. Careful exchanges of fire. Slow dances of position and retreat. This was not a dance. This was butchery. "They are not accepting surrender," she whispered to no one. In the space around New Bizen, hegemony ships began to explode. 1, then 3, then 7. The human drones continued their work, crippling ships so the larger vessels could destroy them. It was efficient. It was brutal. It was utterly without mercy. 15 minutes into the battle, War Chief Droma finally understood that he was going to lose. He reached for his communication controls with shaking claws. "Human vessels, this is War Chief Droma. I offer surrender. I repeat, I offer complete surrender. Cease fire immediately." On the Resolve, Jinho heard the transmission. He did not respond. "Sir," Yuna said, her voice flat, "the enemy is signaling surrender. Continue firing." Yelleth stepped forward, her bronze body trembling. "Captain, he is surrendering. Galactic law requires. Galactic law does not apply to humanity." Jinho's voice was ice. We never signed those treaties. We never agreed to those rules. But this is murder. Jinho finally turned to look at her. His face was still calm, but his eyes burned with something ancient and terrible. Scholar Yelleth, 4 hours ago, War Chief Droma's forces killed 2,847 civilians on New Bizan. Men, women, children. They were not soldiers. They were not threats. They were farmers and teachers and shopkeepers. He stepped closer to her, and she found herself backing away. He killed them to send a message, to show humanity that the hegemony could not be opposed. He wanted us to be afraid. Jinho's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Now I am sending a different message. Surrender was an option before the first innocent person died. It is not an option now. The last hegemony ship exploded on the tactical display. 42 vessels, thousands of soldiers. Gone in less than an hour. Droma's final transmission was still playing on repeat, his voice growing more desperate each time. I surrender. I surrender. Why won't you answer? No one answered. On the surface of New Bizan, Sergeant Major Taiwu led his ground forces through the ruined colony. The hegemony had not just attacked, they had occupied. Their ground troops had rounded up civilians, executing anyone who resisted. Private Wujin, barely 20 years old, walked beside him. The young soldier had trained for 3 years for this moment. He had run simulations. He had studied tactics. He thought he was ready. He was not ready for what they found at the school. The bodies were small. Too small. Children who had hidden in their classrooms while monsters with weapons broke down the doors. Some had tried to run. Some had tried to hide under desks. None of them had escaped. Wujin fell to his knees. His rifle clattered on the floor. His body shook as sounds came from his throat that were not quite crying and not quite screaming. Taiwu stood beside him. He did not tell the young soldier to be strong. He did not tell him to focus on the mission. He simply waited. After a long moment, Wujin looked up at him with wet eyes. Why? They were just children. Why would anyone do this? Taiwu knelt beside him. His voice was low and steady. Because they thought we were weak. Because they thought we would negotiate. Because they thought killing our children would make us obey. He put a hand on Wujin's shoulder. Remember this feeling. Remember it forever. This is why we fight the way we fight. So that no one ever thinks they can do this to us again. Wujin wiped his face and picked up his rifle. Something had changed in his eyes. The boy who had walked into this building was gone. Something harder had taken his place. Back on Tassar Prime, the Galactic Council watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. The tactical display showed the hegemony fleet vanishing ship by ship, their surrender signals ignored, their pleas unanswered. Grand Arbiter Velus's crystalline body had gone dark. He had not spoken in an hour. Ambassador Thrall was the first to break the silence, his voice barely a whisper. They killed them all, even after surrender, even when the battle was won. This is not war, said the being of smoke, its form flickering with distress. This is. I do not have a word for this. Velos finally spoke, his voice hollow. Extermination. The word is extermination. A new transmission arrived. Captain Jinho's face appeared on the main screen. He was still calm, still empty, as if he had not just destroyed an entire fleet without mercy. To the Galactic Council, he said quietly, the hegemony attacked our people. The hegemony no longer exists. Let this serve as clarity for future diplomatic relations. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Grand Arbiter Velos felt that cold sensation again. Stronger now. He finally had a name for it. Fear. True fear. 6 weeks after the Battle of New Bizan, the Droma hegemony was gone. not defeated, not conquered. Gone. The human fleet had moved from world to world with terrifying speed. They did not negotiate. They did not demand tribute. They simply arrived, destroyed every military installation, every government building, every factory that could build weapons. The hegemony's billion citizens were not killed. Humanity was careful about that, but they were left with nothing. No fleet, no army, no leaders, no ability to ever threaten anyone again. Scholar Yelith had traveled with the human forces, recording everything. She had watched them dismantle a galactic power like a child taking apart a toy. Now she stood before the Galactic Council, her bronze body heavy with the weight of what she had witnessed. "They are not like us," she said to the assembled leaders. "I have studied 100 species. I have documented 1,000 wars. Nothing prepared me for humanity." Grand Arbiter Velos leaned forward. His crystalline form had not regained its full brightness since the battle recordings. "Explain. Help us understand what we are dealing with." Yelith activated her recording device. Images appeared in the air above the council chamber. Earth. Human history. The same images Taiwu had shown her aboard the Resolve, but more. So much more. "They call this the Great War," she said, showing trenches stretching across a continent. "Nearly 20 million dead. They fought for 4 years over land that could be walked across in days." The council watched in silence. This was the second one. 60 million dead. Cities burned. Armies clashed across frozen wastelands. A camp filled with thin, dying prisoners. They split the atom and used it as a weapon, twice. Ambassador Threll made a sound of distress. Against an enemy species? Against themselves. More images. More wars. Korea, Vietnam, Rwanda, Syria. Each one more senseless than the last. Each one proving that humanity would fight and die for reasons that made no sense to anyone watching. "Their history is written in blood," Yelith continued. "They have nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. Nuclear weapons pointed at their own cities. Enough firepower to burn their entire world, just waiting to be used." She paused, letting the council absorb this. But they did not destroy themselves. They learned. They built systems to contain their violence. Laws, institutions, cultures of restraint. They took the monster inside them and they put it in a cage. "A cage that can be opened," Velos said quietly. "Yes, and the hegemony opened it." Dr. Hanna stood at the edge of the chamber, watching the council's reaction. She had been invited to explain humanity's actions. She had agreed, though she took no pleasure in it. "You wish to understand us," she said, stepping forward. "So I will tell you the truth. Humanity did not evolve past violence. We did not become peaceful. We simply learned to control what we are." She looked at each council member in turn. "Every human child is taught about our history. The wars, the massacres, the nuclear standoffs where we came within minutes of ending our own species. We do not hide from our nature. We face it. We acknowledge that inside every human being is the capacity for terrible things. That is why you build so many weapons," Velos said slowly. "Not because you fear others. Because you fear yourselves. Yes, our military is not just for external threats. It is a controlled expression of what we are. A release valve for the pressure that builds in any human society. Take away that release valve." She did not finish the sentence. Ambassador Thrall raised a shaking limb. "What would have happened if you had lost? If the hegemony had destroyed your fleet and conquered your colony?" Hannah was quiet for a long moment. "We had 3 colony ships hidden in deep space, loaded with genetic material and embryos. Enough to restart our species from nothing. We would have scattered to the far reaches of the galaxy and begun again. And your existing colonies? Your homeworld? Fusion warheads. placed in the core of every human-occupied planet. If we could not have them, neither could anyone else. No resources for our conquerors. No slaves. Nothing but ash. The council chamber was completely silent. You would destroy your own people, Velos whispered. We would deny our enemies any benefit from our destruction. And we would ensure that enough of us survived to come back. However long it took. However many generations. We would return, and we would remember. A being made of crystal and light spoke for the first time. This is madness. This is the thinking of animals, not civilized beings. Hannah's smile was sad. Perhaps, but we are still here. The hegemony is not. Scholar Yeleth deactivated her recording device. There is one more thing the Council should understand. A concept that humans call mutually assured destruction. It was their strategy during a period when two great nations pointed nuclear weapons at each other for decades. What is this concept? Velos asked. If you attack me, I will destroy you. If you destroy me, my weapons will still destroy you. There is no victory. There is no winning. There is only mutual annihilation. Yeleth's bronze body shuddered slightly. They lived like this for generations. Children grew up knowing that at any moment, everything could end. And they did not go mad. They did not collapse. They simply continued. They are insane, Ambassador Thrall said. No, Yeleth replied. They are survivors. Their world made them this way. Evolution on Earth was cruel in ways we cannot imagine. Everything on their planet is designed to kill. Plants, animals, weather, diseases, even their own bodies, turn against them eventually. They did not choose to become what they are. They became this or they died. Velos processed everything he had heard. The ancient being had led the council for 3,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had managed conflicts between species that had lasted centuries. But nothing in his long existence had prepared him for this. What do you want from us? He finally asked Hannah. Is humanity planning to conquer the galaxy? To do to us what you did to the hegemony? Hannah shook her head. We want what every species wants. Safety, prosperity, a future for our children. We have no interest in conquest. We have no desire to rule. Then what? We want to be left alone. We want to trade and explore and grow like any other species. But we will not be threatened. We will not be attacked. And we will not show mercy to anyone who harms our people. She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. You asked what humanity fears. Now, you know, we fear ourselves. We fear what we might become if we are pushed too far. Every weapon we build, every soldier we train, every protocol we establish, all of it exists to ensure that we never have to become the monsters our history shows we can be. She looked back at the council one final time. Do not make us remember what we are. The galaxy will not enjoy what happens next. 5 years had passed since the fall of the hegemony. The galaxy was different now. Trade routes that once avoided human space now ran directly through it. Diplomatic missions came and went from Earth every day. Humanity had become part of the galactic community in ways that would have seemed impossible before New Bizin. But it was not friendship that brought the aliens to human doors. It was respect. The cold, careful respect that comes from understanding exactly what someone is capable of. Captain Park Jin-ho was no longer a captain. He had retired 2 years after the war, turning his command over to younger officers who had never known the weight of those decisions. He told people he was tired. That was true, but it was not the whole truth. Today, he stood on the surface of New Bizin in front of the memorial. It was a simple thing. A wall of black stone, polished smooth, carved with names. 2,847 names. Each one a person who had lived and laughed and loved. Each one a reason for everything that came after. The twin suns of the new business system were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Jinho had arrived early, as he always did when he visited. He liked to be alone with the names. Footsteps approached behind him. He did not turn. He knew who it was. "You still come here," Yuna said. She was Captain Yuna now, commander of her own vessel. Her face had lines that had not been there 5 years ago. War aged everyone, even those who won. "Every time I'm in the system," Jinho replied. "I owe them that much." Yuna stood beside him, reading the names she had memorized long ago. The new recruits don't understand. They see the victory. They see the power we showed. They don't see this. Good. She looked at him, surprised. "If they understood," Jinho said quietly, "it would mean we failed. The whole point is that the next generation never has to feel what we felt. Never has to do what we did." They stood in silence as the suns continued their descent. On the other side of the galaxy, Scholar Yeleth had become famous. Her book, The Human Paradox, was required reading in universities across 1,000 worlds. She had spent years trying to explain humanity to species that could not understand them. Her central thesis was simple. Humans are not more violent than other species. They are simply more honest about their capacity for violence. The hegemony had believed humans were weak because they built so many weapons. They thought fear made humans prepare for war. They were wrong. Humans built weapons because they knew exactly what they were capable of. The weapons were not born from fear of others. They were born from fear of themselves. And that made all the difference. Private Wujin was Sergeant Wujin now. He served in a peacekeeping force on a distant world, helping to mediate disputes between two alien species who had been fighting for centuries. His human soldiers worked alongside alien troops, teaching them methods of conflict resolution that did not require blood. One evening, a young alien officer asked him about the war with the hegemony. Everyone knew the stories, but few had spoken to someone who was actually there. Wujin was quiet for a long time before answering. "Do you know the old human saying? Speak softly and carry a big stick." The alien shook his head. "It means you do not need to threaten. You do not need to boast. You simply make sure everyone knows what you can do, and then you speak gently. Because those who are truly dangerous do not need to prove it." He looked up at the alien stars. Humanity speaks very softly these days. But nobody has forgotten the stick. On Tazara Prime, Grand Arbiter Velos was preparing for his final address to the Galactic Council. He was old, even by the standards of his ancient species. He had served for 3,000 years. It was time to rest. The great chamber was full. Representatives from every species in the galaxy had come to hear his farewell words. Among them were humans sitting quietly in seats that had been empty just a few years before. Velos looked at them for a long moment before speaking. "I have led this council through many challenges, wars, plagues, the rise and fall of empires. But nothing has changed the galaxy more than what happened at New Bizon. The chamber was silent. We believed that fear was weakness. We believed that those who prepared for war were cowards hiding behind weapons. We believed that humanity was a young, scared species that would submit to those who were stronger." His crystalline body flickered with colors of regret. "We were fools." He turned to face the human delegation directly. "Humanity does not fear war. They fear themselves. They know precisely what they are capable of. They have seen it in their history. They have lived it. And they have built an entire civilization around ensuring that capability is never fully unleashed." His voice grew softer. "That is not cowardice. That is wisdom forged in blood. They looked into the darkness inside themselves, and instead of turning away, they built walls around it. Gates that could be opened if necessary, but only if necessary. He paused, gathering his final thoughts. Let my last words to this council be a warning and a lesson. Do not mistake human kindness for weakness. Do not mistake their patience for fear. And never, ever harm their people, because the gates they have built will open. And what comes through those gates has no mercy, no hesitation, no limits. The chamber remained silent as Velos descended from his seat for the last time. Back on New Bizen, the twin suns had fully set. The stars were coming out, thousands of points of light in the darkness. Jinho still stood before the memorial. Dr. Hannah found him there, as she often did. Her hair was gray now, her face lined with years, but her eyes were still kind, still sad in that way that everyone who remembered the war shared. The council session is over, she said. Velos gave his final speech. They're talking about it across the whole galaxy. Jinho nodded, but did not respond. Hannah moved to stand beside him, reading the names on the wall. So many names. So many lives cut short. Do you think they finally understand us? She asked. Jinho watched the stars emerge. The same stars that had once terrified humanity, and now held civilizations that spoke their name with quiet dread. Understanding is not the same as knowing, he said finally. They understand the words now. They can explain what we are. Write books about us. Give speeches. He was quiet for a moment. But they do not know. Not truly. They have never felt it. Never looked at their own history and seen the horror staring back. He touched one of the names on the wall gently. I hope they never have to know. I hope no species ever has to learn the way we learned. Hannah took his hand. They were both old now, both tired in ways that sleep could never fix. Was it worth it? She whispered. Everything we did, everything we became. Was it worth it? Jinho looked at the stars for a long time before answering. Ask me again in 100 years. If no one has attacked us, if no one has harmed our people, if the peace we bought with blood has lasted. He squeezed her hand gently. Then I will tell you it was worth it. They stood together in the starlight, two old soldiers who had done terrible things for the right reasons. Behind them, the wall of names stood silent in the darkness, a reminder of why humanity fought the way it fought, a reminder of what they protected, and a warning to anyone who might forget.